Hi, friends. Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm your host, Josh Horton. Today, I'm talking with designer, educator, and writer Gail Anderson. You might know Gail from her work in the creative department of Rolling Stone magazine, her decades at the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, or from the books that she's created with Stephen Heller and others that shaped how many of us think about design and culture. We walk her path as a student at SVA to Random House and the Boston Globe, into a 14-year run at Rolling Stone with the legendary art director Fred Woodward, and now into the life as an educator and an author. Gail talks about what real mentorship looks like, how to build teams that chase great ideas without ego, and how she keeps the joy of late nights and type nerdery without letting work swallow her life. We also get into why education still matters in a world of Skillshare classes and online tutorials, what has changed for graduates trying to land that first job, and why storytelling, critique, and community are still the real core skills beneath all the tools and trends. She shares what it has meant to document design history, from a book on stamps to a new project on Black designers and their impact. If you're trying to build a career that lasts, if you're asking whether school or mentorship is worth it, or if you feel the pull to give more back to the next generation, then this one's for you. Before we dive in, a quick invite. The State of the Union podcast is powered by listeners like you. There are no sponsors, just the conviction to keep these conversations alive and a lot of editing hours. If this podcast helps you, consider chipping in a few bucks a month to support the show. Even the cost of a coffee a week makes a big difference and helps us keep these episodes ad-free and coming regularly. You can support the podcast at creativeworks.co/podcast. The link is in the show notes. Let's get into it. Now we find you in your office. Are you at the office at SVA? Or are you at
I
home?
am not. I'm upstate. I'm in Woodstock right now.
Okay, nice.
So,
yeah, that's right.
For the long weekend. So.
Oh, that's right. And you have an office in an apartment in the city.
Well, my office is at SVA,
right,
in the main building, which used to be a dental school.
That's right.
So it's kind of this weird building, but that's where I am. The theater, the operating theater.
The theater was, exactly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm kind of, at this point, I'm actually not set up at home anymore. And I try to just bring my iPad and not even my laptop so that I don't get sucked in. So in my apartment, there's actually, to make me sound even weirder, there isn't even any furniture at this point. During the pandemic, right before the pandemic, I live in a co-op in the West Village, and after a zillion years there, they decided we're going to upgrade your electrical. And so you've got to move everything to the center of the room so they can go in and go around the edges and then all this stuff that's going to be super expensive. And so at that point, I'd been in the apartment for probably 30 years, more than 30 years. And I can't think of the last time I moved everything to the middle of the room in the two rooms in this tiny apartment. So it was a challenge to move the bookcases, all that. Like, I've painted a couple times, but other than that, like literally moving everything to the middle. And so I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. I'm going to start getting rid of things. And there's things, again, been in there since in my 20s. So it's time so I'm like getting rid of stuff. Do you want this? So by the time I'm done, I just had a couch left, right? And all my books. And so the pandemic hits and I'm out of the apartment for like 2 years. So by the time I come back, I have nothing but my books and a couch. And so since then I've sifted through the books and have brought most of them upstate. But if you came to visit me, you'd be like, oh, did you just move in? Or are you just moving out? Because I have a couch and that's it, and a chair. And so it's only this year that I actually unfold the couch at night to sleep. So I was too freaking lazy to even like, I'm fine. So I'm like living with nothing, which has actually been really good.
Sure.
And it's like, you know what? I don't need much. So
when you look at your, go ahead.
But everything's up here instead. So I have a mess up here.
Well, that's amazing though. I mean, I've been to the office at SVA and you have a really cool place to, to for all your stuff and
Yes.
things on one end. And then you've got your little studio on the other side, which is just packed with inspo and posters and all the things that like inspire you. And you still have your, you know, your desktop and all the things that you can continue to work on. Do you primarily find that when you're like writing books and stuff like that, do you like to do that on the iPad, or do you like to do that in the office?
Oh God,
as
no,
well?
No, that's what the laptop's for. And sitting, I have a chair up here that is worn down. That's where I write. And so I write near, on this particular chair with the window so I can see the mountain, while I'm working. But I don't write in my bedroom. I don't write in my apartment. Like I'm trying to sort of create some little spaces to do things.
Yeah, that's important.
I know if I go back to having my apartment as this like all-purpose source of inspiration and workplace, then all I'll do is work. And certainly as I'm getting older, I'm getting old, trying not to like have it take over. And so even in the apartment, it's bare walls. You know, when you're in my office, it's like woohoo. Or if you're upstate here, it's woohoo. But at home, and I'm one of those people who's lucky to have another place to go. I acknowledge that, but I have to have this one place that there's like nothing but the couch, and that's been good. But I can't seem to replicate it in any other part of my life, because now my office looks just like the apartment used to look. So.
Well, what's interesting is you said you moved into your apartment in your 20s. Was this post SVA?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I went to SVA, and after school moved back home because I couldn't afford my own place or even a place with roommates. I was working at Random House. We were all making $14,000 there, which even then was a very low salary. And so the next job, when I moved up to Boston to work at the Globe, I was making like more sort of grown up money. And so had a great experience living with a roommate who's still a dear friend. And when I came back, moved back home again for a little bit, and then was house sitting or apartment sitting for a bunch of people, and then bought a small apartment in the West Village that I thought would be my starter apartment, and I'm still there. So,
man, that apartment has seen a lot and gone through a lot. I mean, so much of your life too. What was your job? So, what was it? I'm trying to track through what I know of you. Would it have been Rolling Stone after that when you moved back?
I moved back for Rolling Stone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm still tracking. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you did, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Gail worked with Fred Woodward, which is
Fred Woodward.
Yeah, Woodward. Sorry. Incredible art director, creative director at the time, I believe. We're also worked at GQ afterwards, if I'm getting my timeline.
Yeah. Fred's an editorial design legend, and was like a big brother, and still is after all these years. And someone I learned everything good that I learned about, you know, how to sort of be an editorial designer and journalist to an extent. And I watched him be part of all the conversations there. He wasn't sort of the art director who was over on the side. He was part of the decisions, the editorial decisions. He was writing headlines, he was writing cover lines, and that made me feel like, oh, that's what we can do. You know, like he is not just art director. He is like full on journalist. And so he was never seen as separate or lesser. So we were never seen as separate or lesser. And, and that was his genius among many, of course, and then being like an incredible designer, but there was nobody who could get more excited about an idea and who went from like high highs to low lows. But those highs, when he had a great idea, he'd be like whooping it up in his office, and you're just like, yes. And so we were all just like, we were buzzing for years and years and years. And that was because of him, and because he always had this sort of childlike enthusiasm for making things. And for excellence. And the
Yeah.
thing that he didn't do, which I've tried to carry through in my jobs after that, was he didn't pit us against each other, the designers. He didn't celebrate one over the other. You know, if somebody was on a roll, they were on a roll, you know, but it wasn't like, oh, you're doing incredible work. And then the other person's like, oh my God, what about me? So we were never like
Right.
little, you know, little birds in the nest, like waiting to be fed. We all just did it. We did the next issue. We did the issue after that. You know, we had our moments, but yeah, certainly you were celebrated from time to time, but it was never set up as a competitive environment. And I think that I've been able to bring that to jobs after that it's like, we're here to support each other. You know, I don't try to make anybody feel like you're the star and you're the dud and what happened to you and all that. So
why do you think that happens? What do you think about, why does that dysfunction happen sometimes? Because you hear it often, especially with creatives, but do you know what drives something like that for someone, a creative director or an art director?
Because
That's a really interesting observation that you're articulating this, and I'm thinking, oh, well, I've heard that before.
Yeah, we all want that buzz, you know, those
Right.
those highs of the victories and the great issue and the awards and the accolades and all that stuff. That's really wonderful. And I was so lucky to have been part of a team that was celebrated for, you know, for a really long time. Yeah, it's easy to get kind of hooked on that stuff.
Right.
And get the focus off the work itself. And
Yeah.
working with him for those 14 years really kind of kept me focused on the work. So
that would have
not
been
that he
late.
wasn't chasing the other stuff, because he was.
Sure,
and he was the most amazing person at knowing how to enter a competition, you know, and this goes in this category and that goes there. And, you know, like, look at him being strategic. So
yeah, you guys were doing, I mean, all of the, what's interesting, and I didn't find this out till later, my intro to a career was as a recording engineer at Ardent Studios here in Memphis. And
really,
yeah, I don't.
see, I didn't know that about you. No.
Yeah, so I got a recording engineering degree and started working in 2000 at Ardent Records and Studios, and it wasn't, something happened in the studio which was ridiculous, and I basically decided, and also because I was seeing my friends who were engineers and producers like spending too much time away from their families and just kind of living that life, and I was like, oh man, I can't do this. What are some office jobs that would support this work? And that's how I got into graphic design, which is really interesting. But what was amazing when you and I first met, and I realized kind of the gravity around your work, is that you had been working on basically all of the, I mean, this is even really interesting. I became a designer in 2002, which I think is right around the time you were leaving.
Yeah, that is.
Rolling Stone. But all throughout the 90s and the early 2000s, when I was studying to be a music producer and buying all of those magazines, the Trent Reznor spread, like when he was doing The Fragile, I was in college for that, and I was just studying everything that Trent was doing at that time. And it's just so amazing to know that you were, a lot of the stuff that I went to the mall and went to, you know, grab the newsstand books, the Rolling Stones. I mean, you know Memphis. I mean, it's just the deep South. Us kids down here didn't know any better, and so Rolling Stone was the way that we learned about culture in a lot of ways, you know, and things that were happening outside of here. And you were just so instrumental in that. What were some of the things that, like, you know, I think of your work. I also think of like, you know, David Carson, Paula Scher. So many of you guys were working in music around those times. You know, and those opportunities don't really work. They don't exist anymore in those same ways, unfortunately.
Oh my God, I know. I remember David came to the office and Fred introduced us. Oh yeah, he's doing this beach culture magazine and this other stuff. And we're like, oh wow, cool. Like, this is really interesting. It was so different from what we were doing. It was like, oh my God, this is, but it was like, wow, I think he's onto something. And then, you know, then boom, you know,
right.
Then there's Raygun. So
I know. And it never hit me again. Like the work that you guys were doing, I just wasn't paying to that end of it, though I appreciated it immensely. You know, either holding a record jacket in my hand or picking up a Rolling Stone. And then I think I was paying attention to spin and a few other publications. But I just think that's tremendous. Any stories, that's such a huge body of work that you guys created. Any kind of stories from back then that you haven't shared with me before, just about that work and things that you guys were doing then that like just really resonated with you, whether they're stressful or joyful or whatever? Like, what's a story that you tell people about that time that probably a lot of folks haven't heard?
I don't know. The thing that always, the community part of it definitely comes to mind. As I said, how we kind of work together, the late nights, a way of working that doesn't really exist at this point. And maybe for good reason, that people have their boundaries and all that. But that was intoxicating, and you wanted to do more. You wanted to make it better. You wanted to hang on to it until it needed to go, to be read. And then when you got it back again, you wanted to tweak it one more time. And but the great part was that it was so ephemeral that it wasn't going to live forever. If you had a dud week, you did another 2 weeks later and 2 weeks later. And that was really liberating. Because
what was your turnaround time?
You did it like a week and a half to do an issue.
Okay.
And so that,
and they're writing it the entire time. So folks that aren't in publication, I mean, it's like a storyboard, not a storyboard. What would they call that? Editorial board. Like, I mean, you guys are having to kind of like craft this thing on the fly and then land it within a certain number of pages and things like that.
Yep. The week and a half was really, really start to finish, from knowing what was in the issue to, then is there more, is there less, based on advertising, waiting for headlines, making illustration assignments, hoping to make an assignment for an issue down the road. So you're kind of working on a few things at once. And everybody was working on departments within the magazine, and then the features. And then, and then Fred and I would sit and work on the cover together. That I was really his hands a lot of the time, but, or his fingers on the keys.
Sure.
But yeah, you weren't just working on a spread, or a story. You were working on a bunch of things. And so you had to learn how to budget your time. And as young people who had lots of time, we would let it stretch on, into the evening and night. And sometimes it was deadline based, or sometimes it's just because the music was good and you were in a groove when you were working.
Totally.
So,
yeah, I worked at a couple of record labels, Ardent Records after that, and then Tooth and Nail Records and Solid State after that. And I would stay, my friends had gotten married in Seattle and I wasn't married. And I'd kind of told myself, like, I'm going to contribute, my kind of early 20s to this craft, to figure out like how these guys do it and how they do it so well, and why, what are the gaps and what am I missing? And so I would, like you said, when the music was great, like they would all go home and the Tooth and Nail offices would be completely dark. And I would just stay up there designing and, doing real work. I mean, at that time, it wasn't really a personal thing, but doing real work till late hours and then take the late bus home. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. People didn't understand. They would come up and, like go into like the A&R folks or the CEO would come in and just be like, what are you doing here, dude? That's crazy.
Yeah. I
love that.
Yeah. I find myself occasionally tempted, when I'm at school, and this past week or so, I've been doing it again, but I'm not there till super late. I'm gone by 8:30, which, is nothing for what I am capable of, the kind of hours I'm capable of. So that's pulling back. But the beginning of the semester for me, and just kind of getting back up to speed after the break, I've kind of enjoyed. It's like, okay, all right, you all go away. Like, let me just put my music on and just sit here and kind of get my sort of head in this space again. And so I do it, that I'm not doing out of necessity. I mean, certainly a bit of it's out of necessity, but most of it is out of like, I'm just enjoying this moment of quiet, my music, the thing that I want to work on for a while. And luckily at this, late stage of life for me, I can still have those moments, and I want to make sure that the kids that we teach have those moments in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like if this can be an amazing career, and there are times that you got to put a little extra but I want you to enjoy that extra, and know that you're going to have a couple of those moments that you're just like, whew, those moments now I see are early evening moments, not 2 a.m. moments. Like that's everything's just going to happen then. But yeah, I was surprised not surprised, but I enjoyed how much pleasure I was getting these last 2 weeks about having a little me time,
Sure.
And I just started poking around and looking at type again, and just as like I let myself get kind of designy, which I think I really needed, and I look and I see like, man, you've got like a zillion typefaces at instant access. And even if you're just using, the Adobe library now with the subscription, you get a taste of so many great foundries. And, if you start zipping around outside and paying for fonts, which I'll still do sometimes just to have it. I don't even know why. It's like, I'm going to use this one day, so we buy it. I'm a collector of this thing that like, sure. Yeah, it's like I still really enjoy that. So I'm glad that I haven't gotten jaded about that part of things. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think we don't want that, again, that childlike kind of wonder and joy to go away in the midst of, in the midst of this work, because you just got to to be good at this work. You've got to stay on. And it's like, you got to find the things that keep you on. Right.
Yeah.
Or in that groove of creativity where you want to turn the music up, you want to stay late and do the things that.
And again, I'm not saying that people should stay late. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just talking about myself. Just let me get that out there. But, be careful here.
I know. And I guess that's the thing is like, I mean, yes. I mean, I think maybe where you're coming from, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like when I started out, I was an intern, right? I interned at Asterisk Studio, and they paid me nothing for a summer, which I think is unheard of these days, an unpaid internship. And I showed up every day, and I numbered posters, and I folded T-shirts, and I did all the kind of like clean the bathrooms. I did all the things that people didn't want to do that worked in that studio. And I eventually got a job there, which was the most amazing and rewarding part. There were others that came through at the same time that didn't get the job there. But, there was a time where like you would save up money and move somewhere for an opportunity, right? Like maybe those opportunities, I guess, don't exist in the same way. And I think there's probably been people that, obviously take advantage of young talent through internships and not paying them. And, what in your experience as someone who's an educator, what are you finding is kind of like the entry points for most design talent these days? Like where are people going right from school? I mean, SVA is an incredible school, right? So are people going right out from SVA and just getting a really amazing job? Like, what does that path look like for most designers today?
The path has changed. And I'm seeing more internships after graduation, and a 3-month internship, a 6-month internship. And students are sometimes confused because like, wait a minute, the job ended. It's like, no, that was an internship. And they've been great. And I certainly understand that people are loath to commit to a hire these days, and sometimes can't put somebody on staff and deal with all that comes with that.
Sure.
And it's certainly a great way to test drive people to see if they might be a future hire. But it's hard because I think, 20-year-old me, 21-year-old me, or whatever it is when you're graduating, might not have understood that. That's like, wait, an internship? I thought internships were for when you were in school. So that's been a change that like, so from the SVA side, I'm like, oh, please don't do that. Please just hire them. And they're typically paid internships, but it's like, no, I want to know, like, they're in a job. But professional side of me knows that it's really hard right now, and people expand and contract based on the projects that come into their studios and all that. So, and they can have worker designers all over the world if they want to, and they don't have to just hire the New York City area students anymore, graduates. So it's a tough market, but I had someone visit my class last semester, who's at Collins, and I hear of others and have met up with others who are in, this one's at Wyden Kennedy. Like, it's happening. They're getting these jobs, but it's just harder right now.
Yeah.
And not
also,
not because of their ability to do it, not for lack of talent, but
Well, and two, I think, for the smaller studios in particular, there's got to be a level of like chemistry there, right? That you have with
oh my goodness,
that work there.
If you're in a room with a couple of people,
all day long, right?
All day long.
Yes. I mean, and some of these rooms are tiny. I think of my first office. We were all basically in like, I don't even know, like what would seem like a dining room. And we all just had desks all outside the wall. And then the next office was even smaller, just to try to, keep costs down and stuff like that. But there's just a lot of, I think that's the thing that some folks don't understand is there's a chemistry element there. There's like, what's your attitude like,
Yeah. I say it all the time. Like when we're interviewing you, we're thinking, can I sit with this kid for 8-9 hours? Like, are you going to make me crazy? And
how do you address those things? Because you've got to have those kids in your program where you're like, oh man, that's a pill. Like, can you address those?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this, and I say, like, we're looking at your work, yes, but we're mostly like trying to get the vibe of who you are. And that's why we ask our friends for recommendations, and we're not just, getting things that, ads in the paper or stuff, LinkedIn and all that. Like, you're looking for people that you have some, history with someone they know, so that person can really give a good recommendation, a good reference. And so that's what's good for where I am, since at SVA, they're all working professionals. So they're all out in the industry. And so we're like, ask your instructors, you want to intern for them, you want to work for them. We've got Paula back teaching again. Natasha Jen is back teaching. So, like, you want these people to like bring you on to Pentagram. And even if it's an internship, that's good.
Totally. So, well, and I think that's one of the things that I learned, I recently actually wanted to apply for a job at the University of Memphis to kind of gain a little bit more stability kind of in our lives right now. But, I don't have an MFA. And so the idea that I become an assistant professor or whatever is just ridiculous. I just can't do that there. But they're wanting folks to come in and they're going to create some opportunities possibly for me to like adjunct teach, I think is what that's called.
Which is we're great all too, adjunct, right? And I have a BFA. I don't have a master's or a doctorate.
Same.
So I know I'd be limited if I decided to go to a university. I wouldn't be able to teach.
Yeah, and I think, which is crazy, but you could probably. I bet someone would give you an MFA. I mean, at this point, so if you had,
I've got the honorary degree, but not.
That's right,
not the real one.
But no, one of the things that I thought was just really remarkable.
Just Steve Heller has nothing. Okay, and look at Steve.
Right. But I think it's one of the things I think is remarkable at SVA and other colleges like this. And I guess I don't know the distinction or what makes them, but they're taught by working professionals. And I got a degree at the University of Memphis, and my professors were really great. But I think one of the things I think that gets problematic in some college dynamics is, a teacher's seeking tenure, right? And may be a bit out of touch with the profession. And so I think it's important for schools like SVA and for people to understand that, like, hey, being taught by working professionals is a really amazing catalyst to being relevant today in the work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And with technology changing as fast as it is, and design and advertising changing as much, you have to be taught by people who are in this business. The only downside for us, and maybe it's okay that people have to take a week off to go on a shoot, or I can't teach next semester because I've got this going on. So we've got to be kind of nimble with the faculty. And when somebody's upset, well, so-and-so's not coming back, it's like, well, because they got this amazing job, and this is how this works. And at some point they do come back. They're just like, I need some time to get settled in this job, whatever it is. But it also creates opportunities to bring other people in and all that. But it makes it like a big Rolodex thing. Like, oh my God, wait, you can't teach? Yeah. Who are you telling me now? So,
right.
So there's that.
Yeah. So I want to talk a bit about kind of design and education at the moment. Like for me, when I was at Ardent Records and I was doing graphic design, I was a rock star because I could use Photoshop and Dreamweaver and Illustrator to make ads and do single work, things like that. But I really just didn't know. This is before Asterisk in Seattle. Like I really just didn't know the ins and outs, the history, like who to look up to, how to kind of frame the world that I was creating to grow. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons I enrolled immediately at the University of Memphis in their design program, so I could have that type of influence, because I was the lone gun. I was the only person at Ardent Studios Records out of 10 people that was doing that work. And so they were just happy to have me. Right. And when I got to the University of Memphis, I had a professor that had graduated from some really esteemed college, I think in South Carolina at some point. And then Gary Golightly at the who had been working for ad agencies around town, one of the best designers at ad agencies in Memphis for the longest time. And it wasn't until I met those guys and they started kind of like nudging me and putting things in front of me and showing work to me that I started to develop, I guess, a rubric of like what I was going to allow in my mind as far as design work goes. And I grew exponentially, right? Really quickly in a community of people that are designing and mentoring me in those ways. We talked about a little bit about this on the text before this call, but like, what is the importance, especially these days, of a design education? I think primarily for someone like me, I just didn't grow up. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. I didn't know until I got to my profession that it was even a profession. I just thought it was really cool and took it all for granted.
Yep.
So,
I mean, it was commercial art when I was a kid, and it wasn't graphic design yet. And it's like, how do I do that? That looks like fun. Like they pay people to do this. Like, this is amazing. Right. For all I had at my fingertips was print magazine, CA, whatever books they gave us at school, and certainly in high school, the books that were in the art room. And when I got to SVA and met people who were certainly in some cases far more worldly than I was, people from places like California. So we're like, how did you get here? You were in California. Oh my God. That was like mind blowing to me. And sudden access to design books, and going to Rizzoli, to the bookstore, to the Strand, and just wanting to understand history. And that was such a hook for me, was looking back.
Same. Yep.
And then it became, certainly as I was working, understanding how to tell a story, and what my part in it was, in how to frame it visually, and how to keep a reader turning the pages, and continuing to plod through what were then very long stories. Right. But every story I worked on, every cover we did, I was like a sponge for all this, because I was learning American popular culture. I was learning politics. I was learning history, and luckily I had a good base from grammar school and high school, but I realized that the world wasn't just design and typefaces and all this, that I had to understand popular culture and be prepared to be part of conversations and have an opinion, and not just sort of stand there smiling and nodding. Or I didn't want to be perceived as like the dumb designer, who just wants to make it look cool and all that. And I had to sort of grow out of that. I started in school, but certainly it was in the working world. And that I learned that the world itself was so much bigger than what I grew up with in New York. Because I was so like, well, all right, New York, that's it, And again, to have
even in New York,
California was like,
no, totally,
yeah.
Even
for me, to have classmates from another borough, outside of the Bronx or Manhattan was like, what? So even though you think, oh, New York, like, no, New York can be kind of small too when it wants. And we certainly see ourselves as the center of everything. And it was learning that, wait a minute, like this stuff happens in other states, and then I've assumed other countries, but like, I thought it just happened on the East Coast and the West Coast and no place in between. But, working on the books with Steve certainly taught me so much, and that design was everywhere. And there were all these amazing people in Minneapolis and in Chicago, and just every place other than New York, San Francisco, LA, whatever.
When did you start working on those books with Stephen Heller? For those of you who don't know, when we're mentioning Stephen Heller is...
Okay, you need to hang up if you don't know who Stephen Heller is.
Right.
Okay, so see you another time.
I know, right? I mean, and that's the thing too. I was telling Rick Griffith, Rick.
Oh.
So I had the opportunity to get on a call with Rick last week, and we were just talking about the people that I gravitate towards are folks that I would love for me to be mentored by, right? Like the older folks that are basically just like, they've been there, done that. They understand the rules, they understand the craft, they understand the history of this work, and also have incredible amount of wisdom about the importance of it, right? Especially in times like today.
And he's so cool too, on top of everything else.
Yeah, well, no doubt. So, when he started telling me about his radio show, and I tried to throw down my music, like my musical tastes. Oh my gosh. I learned very quickly that I was not talking with, he was not a peer of mine. He was definitely a person that I need to slow down and take notice of. But yeah,
don't you just feel like you want to surround yourself with those people?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think that maybe that's the one of the issues that I see, really, I think because the work that we do is so dependent at times on technology that that we throw away the relevance of our forefathers and foremothers, right?
Yeah.
And that's just something I've never done. Thankfully, again, I can see how quickly that happens. But so Steve, back to Stephen Heller and the work we were doing with him and doing those books with Stephen co-authoring. What were I think it was 2 or 3 books that you co-authored with Stephen?
We did 14 books together.
Wow.
So,
okay. Forgive me.
Yeah, you're a little off on that. Over almost 30 years. And we only slowed down.
Did you start that? When did you start that? Like, when did that begin for you? Because I'm trying to think of your timeline. Like the late 70s you were in school, maybe, or early 80s you were in school?
Early, I graduated from SVA in 84. Okay. I was in Boston. I worked with Louise Feely, his wife, at Random House when she was at Pantheon.
Y'all are thick.
Yeah.
Y'all are thick over there. Like, it's ridiculous.
She was so cool. Oh my God.
How many people...
Yeah, Louise was the goddess,
guys.
Yeah,
yeah.
It doesn't get better than that. Look her up, people.
I know.
amazing, amazing. And he was so in love with her. And she was like, oh, Steve. And
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And when I was in Boston talking to her once, I said, I would love to work on a book with him, like to help him with a book. And when I moved back, he was like, oh, Louise said you wanted to work on something. Like, here's this project. I was like, what? And then we started working together on a book called Graphic Wit, The Art of Humor and Design. This is like early 90s, and I think. And I worked so hard that he was like, let's make you co-author. And I was like, oh, thank you, Steve. And, let's do another book and another book, another book. And, these are little design books, like who buys them? But they were great experiences. And I learned so much, and every time we would do one, I'd be like, never again. This is it. Like, this is too much work, blah, blah, blah. There's no money. And then you see the book and he'd be like, I have an idea. And I'd be like, okay. So.
But isn't Stephen's like, I think when I think of Stephen Heller, I think of his contribution to the importance of commercial art and the impact of commercial art and culture. Isn't that the culture, the thread that goes in all of those books, basically?
Oh, yes. He just happens to know everything in terms of design history. And so it's like, you take care of the historical part and I'll do the contemporary part. But he, like, what a mind, and not just reciting facts, but stringing ideas together, having big ideas, just what a mind. And, the sweet part of him is that he's always filled with self-doubt and wondering, should I still be doing this? Does anybody care? I'm like, oh my God, Steve, just stop.
Right.
But it's also reassuring to see that somebody who's a hero, has the same doubts that the rest of us do.
All our heroes do, right? I think all of our heroes have that same, that self-doubt. And then I think that's the surprising thing for me is the more that I hang out with folks like you, and I got to know Stephen pretty well last year when we brought him in for our East event, and he did an interview with me for Print Mag Online. It's just the human side of our heroes is the thing that I always gravitate towards. And so when I get in those moments where I'm in incredible self-doubt, I always think that there's someone else out there that's dealing with the same things. And most of the time it's your heroes, because they're at a taller place, but that's not the right way to say it, but they're up higher than we are. So the amount of fall that they have could hurt way worse. And so you got to understand, like, there's always that tension there. Quick pause. State of the Union is presented by the Creative Workers Union. We are a community for creative professionals and commercial artists who are trying to make a living without losing themselves in the process. For 13 years, this community has gathered for summit events in Memphis, Seattle, and Brooklyn. This spring, we're back in Seattle for Creative Works West 26, April 30th through May 2nd at the Cornish Playhouse at Seattle Center. It's 3 days of honest, candid talks about what it's like to be a creative right now. Hands-on workshops that sharpen your craft, and real connections with real creatives from across the country who know exactly what this roller coaster feels like. No hype, no influencer energy, just people who care about the work, the history, and each other. And this year, we've rolled back ticket prices to make sure the right folks are in the room. You can learn more and grab a pass at creativeworks.co/west. All right, back to Gail. Back to education. Let's stay on education for a minute. Like, you're at SVA, you're heading up the graphic design program there. The importance of education overall and through your time at SVA. What do you think today is the most important thing about getting a design education in the midst of things like Skillshare or masterclass or all of those things? What in your mind kind of sticks out as the thing that's always been tried and true that never went away?
Being a good storyteller, and to have all this arsenal at your fingertips to go back in time and pull from history, to know the contemporary, but to not ignore what came before, so that you're not caught up in the trends. And, as someone with a different view now, that I'm doing less and educating more, in terms of the design part, I see the portfolios every year and I see whatever the trend is, whether it's everybody's using Helvetica this year or all of these sort of cool 60s, 70s looking fonts a couple of years back, like just whatever the trend is that that I've, and then it was the hand lettering thing for a while. And it's just like, okay, that's all really cool, but I'm still mostly impressed by, somebody telling a great story, or coming at the problem solving part of design is what intrigues me. And like the glossy part of making it cool, I love, and you have to be able to do that, but not that it's more than that, and that the great idea really kind of pops to the surface, and then the other stuff is there to support it, all the cool. So it's so the education part is keeping abreast of technology and mastering what you can here and there. But for you, it would have been, I've got to really be a Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator whiz. Now, right. Oh my goodness, it's something new all the time. Things right. that we think maybe like this is the next big thing, that's gone. We're using technology that was from a startup, and now the company's been sold, and now it's gone.
Totally.
And so like I don't want to push them. I was on a call that somebody referred as like teaching tooling. And I was like, tooling? Like, we don't teach tooling, but we still need you to be able to execute your ideas.
Right.
I don't know.
I think that one of the things that
the education is really valuable. And then the master's, if that's where you want to go, is to really, hone in on my big thinking and my entrepreneurship and whatever, with so many different programs. I didn't even know it was an option to go to grad school when right. like it didn't, there's grad school for design. What? There are doctoral programs.
Well, I feel like there's grad school for everything. You can get your MFA, mm-hmm. you can get your MBA, mm-hmm. Online now from so many different places. But one of the things that I think is really amazing about getting an education in design is that you're in this safe space for a number mm-hmm. of years to create without, you don't have to put it in a portfolio anywhere. You don't have to put it online and share what you're doing online. You're in a safe space to basically hone in on the things that are working.
Yeah, and we tell them you're in a safe space to make mistakes.
That's
you're
right.
in a safe space to fail. In the bigger sense of fail. That we want you to try stuff and mess up and be like, I don't know. Like here are 10 ideas that I tried. That's been really hard. Because you can go in and make a beautiful thing really quickly and easily. And now with AI, you can go in and do it even faster. So we're like, back up and let's focus on the ideas. Let's focus on the problem solving, the storytelling, whatever. And it's been hard. It's been hard.
Yeah. And I think the storytelling thing, what's interesting to me is that really didn't take hold for me until I would say maybe 2015, which seems relatively, it's just kind of crazy. I kind of flew through this just thinking that like authenticity and aesthetics were the most important thing.
Same here. Yeah.
Right. And then getting those right were like the primary concerns or the primary issues to solve. But then it wasn't until I started thinking more intently about storytelling, and you had to do that on the job, obviously through storytelling and mm-hmm. Rolling Stone. And then before that, Harper's, like basically just, that's when it was like gasoline, if you will. That was fuel that you threw on the fire when you were able to take someone through a narrative, right?
Yes.
The brand, tell the owner's story. You literally like tell people what's authentic mm-hmm. through your work. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started making a lot more money and doing a lot more work, is when I could actually combine those things. So, just the foundations, or at least the principles at SVA, seem incredibly on point, because I never heard that in any of my mm-hmm. Work at the University of Memphis. So I just think and then I tried to do storytelling, Mark Kingsley most recently, and then Brian McDonald, a friend of mine in Seattle that really focuses in on that, and they've both worked, Mark worked with Collins, and Brian did work with Belief Agency and still continues to do work with movie studios and stuff. But like that story is so important, and you've got to find spaces to really understand how to put that all together. It's a very complex problem to solve. And I think education or college, you need time and space to do that. And I think an education is a great way to hone in on those skills for sure.
Yep. And then those first couple of jobs, that's just the continuation. That's the apprenticeship. And you want to find that person or those couple of people to mentor you, who are going to put the extra time into rolling up a chair and sitting with you, to make something. I love that I had that. I had it less at Random House when I graduated, but I had it at the Boston Globe with Lynn Staley for the years I was up there. And then I certainly had it with Fred at Rolling Stone. And then, sort of transitioned into being that person when I was at Spot and beyond. So yeah, we always go for the graduates, find the person at whatever job this is, and kind of, people are so used to having criticism hurled at them that if you're the person who's like, oh my God, you're like, I really want to learn from you, you're amazing and all that. We never hear nice stuff like that from people. So we will just take it all in. Like, I will mentor you. So be nice, flatter people. They want to help you, So.
And I think also good college programs or good schools basically teach the art of critique, if you could say that. It was the first time that I was sitting in a room and had my art on a board or my design on a board, and would not only hear, what my professor had to say about it, but what every kid in the class had to say about it too. And I think what that does is it primes you for client work and client feedback.
Oh my God, which can be brutal.
It can be brutal. And you think of the personalities in your classrooms, like there's people in there that totally see your genius. And then there's other people there that are there to like cut you down. And then there's other people there that don't know what to say. And, and so it's such a learning experience in that way that I think.
The good thing for me also was that, and I don't know if this was you as well, it's most of us, that you were like the art kid in high school, and you were the one who did all the posters and you worked on the newspaper, the magazine, and you were really good. And then I got to SVA and I was like, holy shit, Oh,
right.
Like, uh-oh, I am not that person anymore. I am one of many. And there are people who are a lot better than me. And it raised the bar and I had to keep up.
Sure.
And yeah.
That was, I think I guess we've never discussed this. Maybe it's not relevant, but I got off track in high school because I thought being the jock would get me the most girls. I'd seen enough John Hughes movies to know that I had to walk this line between being like a jerk and being like, or like a jock and someone who had a soft heart, if you will.
Aww.
And so, so that's what I was, but I was kind of a jerk. I was like the jock jerk. And then I burned out of that really quickly and got back into art, like right as I was leaving and in my senior year in high school. But the thing that I didn't know is just that was a career. That was a way that I could leverage this artistic side of me that had always existed, that had always, I remember very vividly being, the kid that was in elementary school that would ask my mom to take me to Michael's, which I don't know if they have those everywhere.
Of course they do.
But it's like, I want this sketchbook and I want this, I'm left-handed too. And I had those graphite pencils. And so I would just make messes everywhere, but I would get those books. It's like how to draw a pterodactyl or dinosaurs and how to draw this, that, and the other. And I would just spend so many hours like in my room or at the kitchen table doing all of that stuff.
I love magic
submitting
slates.
Yes.
I draw and then another one.
Yep.
Yeah. My mother called me scribe because I was always writing or drawing. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, yep.
Well, you get you in your earliest work, you get reference for the stuff that you were doing with like music even back then with like the Jackson 5. And I think it was like in an album book of some sort, like looks like the things that I used to use. Yeah, your scrapbook. Like I used to collect stickers and things like that in those books. But I mean, are those memories for you as vivid as they are to me? Like I still remember being that little kid.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's what keeps me going.
That sketchbook's at one of the Smithsonian museums and the National Museum of African American History.
That's amazing.
Culture. Yeah, that I was loath to give it up. I was like, really? And
it's in
like,
good
you know
hands,
what am I going to do with this? So yes, it's a good. Yeah, really. I know. I'm going to take all my shit back.
I didn't think about that.
Oh, I thought about that. So it's like I got all my stuff is there in a drawer somewhere. So, oh my God, yes, those are such fond memories of putting the scrapbook together, drawing, Donny Osmond and Michael Jackson and David Cassidy and then Elton John. And yeah, David those were Cassidy. All, and seeing Donny on the street once, I've told this before. I was with Drew, my old boss and my classmate, a spot, and Donnie was in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and our office was in Times Square, and he was walking up 7th Avenue, and we came out to go to a meeting, and we froze in our tracks, and I just looked at him, looked at each other, and then we started to follow him, and then we caught ourselves at the corner. We're like, what are we doing?
Yeah, right.
But that was our instinct. It's like, what? Chasing this man down the block.
So. And people didn't realize because Donnie wasn't a big deal in the 80s, but back in the day, like he had like back in the day, like in the 70s, really, like maybe even as early as the late 60s. I mean, there was like the Osmond Hour or something like there was a they had a variety like show on TV. And that's what TV back then. From from the reruns that I watched, even like All in the Family and the Jeffersons and Good Times and all that stuff like that I watched in the 80s, like a lot of the stuff that they didn't run in syndication were the variety shows and the entertainment shows.
They were so bad. But I watched them all. My first concert was the Osmond Brothers. And my second concert was the Jackson 5. My poor brother, who's 11 years older than me, had to take my sister and myself to both concerts. And Amazing. He was just like, oh my God, just don't get lost. Please stay here. Stay with me. And we were like, dancing around in Madison Square Garden. Okay. Poor Mike and Jerry and Gail. Yep.
You grew up in New York in such a crazy, like, it's not the New York that we all know right now, right? Like it was the dirty, gritty New York.
Dirty, gritty New York.
But I mean, and what I love, who was it that recently came out with some actor had his own series. It was like, and they had to recreate all of those gritty parts of New York, and they did a lot of it with computers. Oh gosh, he's like really famous. I'll think of it in a second.
When I think of the subway, what the subway looked like, what Times Square looked like. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Because we'd have to go through Times Square to get the Circle Line every year. We take a trip up to Bear Mountain, a day trip on the Circle Line, and they're like, okay, get there at like 7 a.m, and like, oh my God,
were your parents fairly trusting? I mean, I can't imagine what it was like to grow up, but the train was such a convenience.
Yeah,
it was there for everybody.
What else were they going to do? Yeah,
totally.
Like, all right, we'll drop you off, and like, really? So, yeah, you just
that's
got on the
amazing.
Train.
Madison Square Garden, seeing the Osmonds and Jackson 5 there too.
Jackson 5, yes.
Oh my gosh.
We were way up high, of course, but we like worked our way down, and I just think of my poor brother sitting there, just hoping we would come back at some point because we're like, we'll be right back. I'm like, shh, like how close can we get to the stage?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
times.
Yeah. Music. And that's the other thing. It's like toys and music and collecting and print and all of these kind of things, these ephemera and advertising, all of the things that we grew up with just became fuel for everything that we've done. I mean, it's all behind me. If I go to your studio, it's that same way. I'm sure in your house upstate, it's the same way.
So if you had to create a prompt, for something, you've got a world of knowledge in your head to do it.
At your fingertips.
At your fingertips.
Right? Like you can turn around and go grab something that you had 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or someone else had. I always think of the Stephen Heller's Second Apartment. That's the thing that I think you've probably seen. But if you guys don't know, Stephen Heller had so much stuff. I don't know the story really, but like Nico was telling me about this, like just the ridiculousness of like his collection had to move to a completely different apartment.
And they lived in a big apartment. So, but Louise was like, nope, not up here. And they had the apartment below them that was a studio, but a good space. That was he rented it to have his books. And they were very organized, I must say. And all of his crazy collections. And she was just like, not up here.
You wrote a book with and for Amos.
Joe Newton and I designed it, and it was like a wild ride working with Amos. So we were working with Letterform Archive in San Francisco, and they were sending us images.
Absolutely.
And and then we went out to Detroit. It was like, I gotta get out there and be with this guy. And
what a beautiful book. I mean, like the fact that you guys didn't put the spine on it. There's so many choices that you made aesthetically and intentionally through design that I just think are so phenomenal. Do you love that?
They were great to work with. They had the money to do the stuff that we wanted to do, which was great. The hard part was to resist the urge to sort of over design it and trample all over Amos with like Amos-like stuff. So it was, we had to sort of dial it back and be respectful of what he was doing. And most of it was art directing and kind of pacing out the work. And because with Amos, it was like, boom, here's like 10 million posters. And
literally. Are you on his print club too?
Of course I am. Of course I
am. They're like the best thing. I mean, every designer out there who's creating things or wants to create things, you've got to find a way and make it cheap, right? Like make it dirt cheap and find a way to send something to bring someone joy who's doing this work these days. Like it's something that happens for Gail and I and others on his list, but it's just such a great thing. And he just makes so much work too. That's the other thing is like, there's so much there to pull from that he does that. And then the little notes he writes, every now and again, you get a little note. It's really, really fantastic, but you're writing. So let's talk about your books for a second. You're writing or designing more books at the moment.
Well, writing.
Okay.
Finished a book with one of my coworkers, Brian E. Smith at SVA, who was one of my students years back, and we worked together. He is the design director at Visual Arts Press, which is the design studio for the school, and I sort of supervise what goes on over there still. And I was on a committee for 12 years for the Postal Service, the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee, after having designed a stamp that came out in 2013. So I served 4 3-year terms and had to retire at the end of my final term. During the last term, someone from Postal reached out about a book about stamps and was like, really? Of all the like super smart people in this group, like, I'm kind of the bozo, like you should ask one of them. No, but really with history, like, holy shit, those people were smart. And so it was a bit intimidating. So I was again like, really? You sure? And so ended up taking on the project. And Brian and another colleague, Helen Sparopoulos, who I work with, we wrote this book about stamps. Yes, you know Helen. And so it was about a year and a half of working on this for Postal Service and Clarkson Potter, and it'll be out in June in time for the 250th anniversary stuff. And it's different because it's not a designy book, and we kind of throw in a little bit of like information about a designer here and there, an illustrator. It's sort of more kind of general for collectors and history buffs. So that was a big project that took a while. And I'm starting another project now, another writing project with Michelle Washington and David Walker and some other folks. And it's we're sort of dividing and conquering on this book about Black designers that Michelle and I have been talking about since the pandemic, and for Princeton Architectural Press. And we kind of kept getting off track with life. And finally, Princeton's just like, you doing this or not? And so we've pulled it together, particularly Michelle is sort of taking the charge. So I'm like, I have to just write, like, I can't be in charge of this. However, in May, when everything's in, it'll be turned over to me, and then I'll be designing the book, which again, I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but I'll figure out how to make it happen. So Absolutely. That is going to be a really good book. I think, because it's going to cover everyone.
What type of design is it focused on? Is it commercial art, or
well,
is it just
right now it starts, probably in the 20s or so, and goes right up to digital. And even in the few years since the outline, we've added more folks, because then things sort of have blown up and gotten bigger. But sure. It's going to be a nice little taste of who's been doing what, and it's tentatively, called something like I didn't think they were Black, I didn't know they were Black. Something, or it's going to be something along those lines, because it's a bit of a surprise of like, they did what? Who did that?
Right.
And so it's a lot of little morsels, so you can jump in at any point in the book and learn something. You'll see all these images that, again, you'd be like, a Black person did that? What? I didn't know that. And we hope to sort of to spin off chapters into PDFs for schools and do stuff. So it's a big project.
Yeah, and that representation matters. I mean, if you look at the demographics in commercial art or advertising, I think is what I've seen. I think it's like 3% or less of designers are Black.
Oh yeah,
and then I forget all the other demographics in the midst of that, but like that is an incredibly underrepresented group, obviously.
Yes.
And then to even think upon the just what that says and the realities around that, that's just got to be something that's important. But to the point of writing this book is just highlighting who that is, what they've contributed. I think that's an incredibly that's an amazing project. I can't wait to see how you execute that too.
Well, you and me both.
Such a responsibility as well,
Yep, no pressure. So
right.
So that's the kind of stuff that I certainly still take on. Some freelance projects. Did something for a show that I just love, Death Becomes Her. That got to see the show, got to interview the writer, the people the man who wrote the book, the people who wrote the music, all that and that was really fun. And then do this piece that was in Times Square for quite a while. So it's still fun to see something out in the world.
Sure.
But it's also been really good to do these bigger projects that I feel like I'm contributing, to something bigger, but they're, no matter what, as wonderful and important, they're still a big pain in the ass in the end. Oh, and sure. Every single one, I'm like, even with this, I'm like, why did I say I would do this? Like, I just want to watch TV. But
yeah, it is. Like, well, I just said this. It's such a huge responsibility, right? In your life right now, with all things considered in the world around us, what happens when you step outside your front door? Like, what do you kind of think that our responsibilities as commercial artists and designers are these days? You've been through some of those social shifts, or at least caught some of that in our country. You've been through all the technological advances in our industry and things like that.
Going into it 10,000 years ago, I thought I had no responsibility. I thought I was just going to make cool stuff. I was going to make cool magazines and maybe do album covers and book covers and all that. And that's fine. And that's great. And you can certainly be in that lane and have an amazing career. So you don't have to dive in. I think that it's important at some point to teach and to pay it forward.
Yep.
I'm trying to kind of put that out there for students as well, that you can choose what the responsibilities that you want. Mine has been to make sure to pay it forward, because I've been so lucky. Things could have certainly turned out differently. Our folks just wanted us to go to college. It was not like, you've got to go to this college, you've got to pursue this degree. It was, for me, thankfully, it is what is this? Is SVA a college? And I was like, yes, it is. And they're like, okay. Like there was no, they're just like, you just going to college. And so I had no family pressure, none of that other than college itself. And yeah, I want to leave a mark of having done some good, and maybe that's from a zillion years of Catholic school before SVA, but yeah, I feel like I have a responsibility to, especially now that I'm older, to pay it forward in a big way. So I don't even know if I'm getting at your question at all. I meandered off.
No, totally. Well, you have folks that like that's I would say that makes a ton of sense, and you're also talking about paying it forward, not trying to, start a, multi-level marketing scheme where you're, here are the 10 truths to Gail Anderson's, work, pay me for this PDF, and then I'm going to send you this other PDF. And kind of what you see when you log in to LinkedIn these days is just like scheme after scheme after scheme about how to build success in a creative career, and ignoring in a lot of ways like that creative careers with creative people and personalities happen in so many different ways. And you've got to, like, it's kind of an individual journey that happens collectively, right? It's really interesting, but paying it forward, I think, is, and what I hear you say, and really just participating with Creative Workers Union and Creative Works and all of the things that you've done is just, you've made yourself available for these opportunities.
It keeps you young, it keeps you in touch with what people much younger than you like, and the language they use, and the phrasing and all this stuff. I'm like, what? And, there are moments certainly that makes me feel old, particularly when I hear what the vernacular is, but it's important for me to understand that and learn that.
Totally.
And I enjoy it. So,
well, you're an educator, but you're also a community leader. There's a huge, strong community around SVA and what you guys have built there for decades. Thank you for your time.
All right.
We'll talk later.
See ya. Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye. Thanks for listening to State of the Union. If this episode helped you feel more grounded in your own path or reminded you why mentors, teachers, and community mattered, I would love for you to share it with a friend or your team and leave a rating or a review wherever you listen. It helps more creatives find these conversations and helps us keep going. If you're looking for a community that cares about craft, real-world impact, and responsibility as much as aesthetics and trends, come hang with us this spring in Seattle at Creative Works West. Registration link is in the show notes. Got a story about a win, a setback, or a shift you are navigating in your own creative career? Send it to stories@creativeworks.co. I would love to hear it and maybe share it on a future episode. State of the Union is produced by the Creative Workers Union, hosted by Josh Horton, and edited by Sydney Gladue. Until next time, keep showing up, focus on your craft, and remember, you're not alone.